Thanks for joining us for another episode of What's on Your Plate podcast. I'm super excited today to have Catherine Talley on. She is newly published author of a book releasing, probably will be released by the time this podcast is flowing into your ears. Charlotte the Shark Won't Go to Sleep. That is probably the most adorable title I've ever heard in my life. Welcome, Catherine.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm honored.
I am just thrilled that you agreed to be on here with me today. First and foremost, I'm an avid reader. And
Yes.
anytime anybody I know like publishes a book, I'm like, oh my God, that's it. That like totally ups their cool factor. Have to talk to them more about it. So here we
Yay.
are.
I feel the same way. I'm like, if anyone I know ever publishes a book, I'll be the first to buy it. So
Yeah, absolutely. I'm all for supporting authors. Um, Tell me about how this even became a thing. Where did this manifest from, and how did it become an idea to write a children's book?
absolutely. So you have actually made cakes for my daughter. So you know her name is Charlotte. So you can probably tell that this is based on a true story. The first several years of Charlotte's life, she did not want to sleep. I cannot tell you everything that we tried. Probably until she was like 4 years old. She's now 6.5. So we finally found something that works. Whatever was not right before is right now. So she sleeps, but I never had the luxury of being one of those parents who's like, yeah, my kid just puts themselves to sleep. I'm like, I don't know what that's like. My kid just didn't do that. So and she got the nickname Shark when she was a baby. I can't even exactly remember what I was thinking when I called her that, but it kind of stuck. So she's always kind of been like my Charlotte Shark. So when I was really frustrated one night, I'm like, gosh, like this kid just won't go to sleep, and I'm like, I'm not the only one. There's other parents like this. So I sat down. It was the next like afternoon after a horrible night, of her not going to sleep. And I sat down, and for some reason I'm really good at rhymes. I cannot tell you why. It's my party trick. You tell me to write a limerick about something, I can write it in like 5 minutes. It's my goal. So I kind of like challenged myself to do that. So I wrote the first draft. Mind you, it's a rough draft in like maybe 40 minutes. And then I was like, this is actually kind of cute. And so then, the next steps were looking into it, kind of getting serious about it. But that was probably a little over a year ago now. So it's kind of a process.
Yeah, it sounds like it. And absolutely can relate to the whole kid not wanting to sleep thing. It was like the one thing I prayed for when I was expecting my son, like, please give me a sleeper. And,
Right.
wah, wah. So that didn't quite happen. And we worked with like a sleep therapist and like did all
Oh
the
my gosh.
things. And, I
Yeah.
don't know, he just, yeah, I don't know. I mean, he just hates sleep, but he's a
Yeah.
little bit better now, but we're still a work in progress. So I'm excited to read this book to him and,
Yes.
just be able to share it. I can't wait for it to come out. I've pre-ordered it, of course, and I'm excited
Oh,
to
thank
receive
you.
it. It sounds like next week. Um, Tell me a little bit more about, I think the idea of being an author has been something that's been in your mind for a long time since you were a little girl, right?
Yeah, so I believe it was third grade, which also happens to be my favorite year of school. Like growing up, my favorite all-time teacher. So something must have clicked for me in third grade. I just, I really started writing. And funny thing is that I think I shared a little bit about it before, but I had this yellow, like those yellow legal pads that tear from the top. Okay. So I'm left-handed. My mom thought, oh, spiral notebooks will bother your hand because you're left-handed. I'm going to get you this notebook. It's different from the whole class, right? Like I'm in third grade. I kind of don't really want to stand out, but here I am with this bright yellow pad of paper and everybody else has a normal spiral notebook. But that's what I wrote on, like for the longest time, until I was like, no, spiral notebooks are fine. Like we adjust. But so I still have my first story that I wrote it was called The Case of the Missing Warheads. Mind you, I'm talking about the sour candy, not like nuclear warheads. But that was my first story that I ever wrote, and I still have it. I was going through a box of stuff in our attic, and it's still in there. And I mean, I illustrated it too, but I must say I did not illustrate Charlotte the Shark Won't Go to Sleep. I can barely draw stick figures, so.
But the words flow brilliantly from you, which
Thank
that
you.
is a craft in and of itself. So, who could expect you to do both? That was a really awesome observation of your mom's. So like realize that spiral notebook would be hard for a
Yes.
lefty.
Yes, she honestly was so thoughtful in so many ways, but I like looking back, it's just ironic because as a kid, even in, elementary school, middle school, high school, you kind of want to not so much stand out and be different. You're kind of worried to do that. And then
Yeah.
the irony of it is just, he or she was giving me something that would help me, but I was like, no, no, I'll be uncomfortable. I don't want to stand out like that. But like, I mean, the fact that I still have a story on that paper is just so special because that was one of the first like notebooks she ever bought me. So
That's so heartwarming. I love to hear that. And, yeah, absolutely. If we only knew, then what we know now, and
right.
to stand out is actually something you want to do in life versus blend in
Exactly.
with everybody. Yeah, those growth mindsets that we all have are ever changing.
Very
You
true.
know, recently when I first learned about your book and you laughed at something I suggested that, I want to get you on here and talk to you on my lesser known platform, What's on Your Plate, before you become like a New York Times bestseller. And there you go again, laughing at, I
Yeah.
think, a very like legit possibility, valid suggestion. Because if not you, then who? Why not? Why can't you dream big for something that you've poured your heart into?
It is true when you put it that way. I think I can't tell you why. I mean, obviously that's the dream. I think anybody in like really entertainment industry or, music or um just writing, acting, anything like that. I think everybody wants to be famous and we all want it really quick, right? Like I would love to look on Amazon and see, oh, I'm number one in children's verse or something like that. But when you look at the numbers, it becomes a little discouraging. I mean, when you look at how many books are sold on Amazon but I was really shocked at when I first shared about publishing the book. I think 57 or 58 people shared my post. I'm like, gosh, if each person who shared it bought a copy, that's like, I'm halfway to 100 copies. And like, my book could sell 5 copies, but I still would have gotten my voice across. I still would have published a book. I still would have set out what I wanted to do. Anything that kind of comes after that is just an added bonus, I think. And my editor actually made a great point. He said, you've published this book and it's here now. You have the whole rest of your life to work towards making it a success or to do whatever you want with it. Like I don't, there's no deadline, you know what I mean? There's no deadline on whether I'm successful or not. So that was
Yeah,
nice to hear.
that is a great point. And it just also reminds us that things are a process. Most people don't land into any type of fame instantaneously or knowing instantaneously. So keeping it after the release date and promoting it and sharing it with the world is an ongoing thing, right? I'm sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I got some time now.
So with the process, let's talk about that a little bit. How long did it take you to create this vision and to put it on paper? I mean, I'm sure the behind the scenes parts of it, the things that were out of your control were dragging along painfully slow for you once you were
Mhm.
done with it. But what about your
Yeah.
part in it?
So, anyone who's not familiar with the publishing process, there's a few different ways you can go. All the we all know the like Penguin Publishing or HarperCollins or the big companies. Stephen King publishes with a major company. They will pay for everything up front. You don't have to foot the bill on anything, but do you get to keep all the rights and the royalties? Like there's pros and cons to different ways to publish. So I first had to kind of look into that. And obviously, if you can't afford to do it any other way, you got to kind of get someone to sign you. You have to submit your story to so many different people, to literary agents, try to get them to back you because then your chances just greatly increase. That's really hard to do. I did that for probably, I want to say 10 months or so. I got great feedback. I mean, everyone was super nice, but sometimes it takes 6 months just for them to tell you no. They get lots and lots of children's book, especially submissions. Then there's self-publishing. I gotta tell you, I don't know enough to find my own illustrator, to find my own editor. So there's this thing in between called hybrid publishing, and it kind of combines the best of both worlds, traditional and self-publishing. So according to my Google algorithms, it must have known that I was looking into these things because it was so serendipitous the way I found the company I went with. It was an Instagram ad. And I really I gotta be honest, I liked their logo. I thought it was cool. And I was like, this company sounds cool. Let me just click on their website and see. They ended up being so much more affordable than any other company I'd seen. So really easy to submit on there. I did it. I got a response almost instantly. I think it was like 3 hours, and it was late at night too. And my editor said, I got to tell you, I don't usually, respond this late, but I loved your story. And it was kind of like actually really quick from there. I know he was working with several other authors at the same time, but he really made me feel like I was the only one. And I knew I was in the right spot at that point. So,
Well, that's cool. Thanks for sharing that journey. I think a lot of us don't know what goes on behind the scenes. We just know that there's a book coming out that we want, and we somehow acquire it, purchase it, or borrow it or
right,
something, and we don't think about how it actually gets there. Kind of like the same with anything else, how it gets on your
right.
plate or how it gets on the screen or anything.
Exactly,
Um,
exactly.
yeah, there's a lot of work that is involved with it, I'm sure. Tell me about how your love of reading was manifested. Who inspired you to love books?
Yeah, so it's actually on my dedication page in Charlotte the Shark Won't Go to Sleep. The first person on there you'll see is to my mom, who sparked my love of reading and writing. So it's absolutely, without a doubt, I owe it all to my mom. In elementary school, we had the Book It program to earn your free pizza. And we had reading goals. Everybody else's reading goal would be in the hundreds. At one point, I remember my goal being like 2,500 pages. That's just because that's what I did. Like that was what I did in my spare time, but not the only thing. I think it's important that she always told me she wanted her kids to be well-rounded. So that reading was important to us, but that wasn't the only thing we did. We played sports, we played an instrument. She wanted us to find what we enjoyed and what we were good at. And I think me and my brothers all read, but I would have to say I probably still read the most out of all of us. So definitely her, though, definitely.
Yeah, that's cool that your mom played such a part in your love of reading and in books. And I could relate to that. Absolutely. My mom was a avid reader, and that was what she did with every ounce of spare time that she had, and encouraged us to do
Hmm.
the same. And for both my sister and I, it has stuck for sure.
Yeah.
And I knew when I was expecting my son that I had to create a reader. like that was one of my biggest priorities. And a sleeper. That one didn't
Yeah.
happen. Maybe I should have focused more on that a little bit.
You got 50%,
I
50%.
mean, I can't do everything, right? So
Right.
yeah, but the reading part has stuck, and so far he embraces it. And I'm just so thankful for his love and enjoyment of books.
Yeah, I'm kind of going through that with my Charlotte right now. She told me reading was boring a while ago, and I was like, oh, that actually physically hurts my heart.
Yeah.
I was like, I
Ooh.
mean, she's 6.5. She's just kind of she's pretty much learned. There's still words she struggles with, but I'm like, she'll get there. I haven't given up all hope. She's just not quite grasped it yet. So I can't blame her yet.
No, and I think it ebbs and flows, I mean, I know that Logan has gone in spurts where he wants to read himself versus having me read to him. Um, but I think at the end of the day, helping instill the value of reading something every day, and even the way
Mhm.
that how much farther and deeper you can go in life based on your ability to read.
Yeah.
I think I talk to my son about that quite a bit, and I often find myself looking for ways how I can support other readers. How can I do things that support literacy programs and just helping people obtain books? And I think that's another thing to talk about, because it's not just about, a love of books between you or I or our kids, but it's helping the world not only love them too, but also have them be accessible and have them
Right.
physically be able to read.
Yeah, that's a great point. I just took her to a book sale at a library. And unfortunately, I haven't spent enough time in libraries in the recent years. The Probably right around the time I would have started to take Charlotte to the library was when COVID hit. And then, we just never kind of picked it up. So, getting to take her I mean, it was a book sale, so it wasn't quite the full library experience, but it was
Mhm.
it was nice that she could go into this room. I mean, she knows what a library looks like. She got to pick all these books. And they were books that nobody like that somebody else didn't want, so they donated, and that now
Mhm.
they're gonna have a new life in the hands of some other little kid who these are new books to her. I mean, she
Mhm.
doesn't care that they were either discharged from the library or who had them before her. So that was exciting just to see them. I actually both my kids just run around and get excited about books.
Yeah, no, for sure. And the library is just such a magical place for so many reasons. And one of them is those book sales, because they sell those books for like a fraction of the cost that
Yeah,
you would buy them. And then that money goes back into the library. So,
absolutely. Yeah.
to keep it going. I'm sure that many libraries have a lot of amazing programs for kids, but one of the most favorite one of ours is here in Crown Point. The library on the first Saturdays of every month has what you call Greyhound Saturdays. So people
Okay.
that are owners of Greyhound dogs,
Oh,
which are
wow.
the most gentle, like sweet dogs, um,
Yeah.
approachable dogs ever. Like they bring them to the
Mhm.
children's section of the
Oh,
library, and the kids
wow.
get to sit and read to them. So
That
it's
is
a
so much
confidence
fun.
building practice, and gets the kids excited about opening a book and reading out loud and practicing their
Right.
words. So, finding ways like that to help kids and even just adults, people, right, embrace
Yeah.
reading and practice reading and feel good about reading is something close to my heart for sure, because I struggled to read as a kid. And now, like, I just am so thankful to be able to have the ability to do so.
Yeah, that's funny you said that because I actually did too.
Yeah.
I had a really hard time learning to read, and it's just ironic you said that because look at us now, I
Yeah.
mean, you wouldn't know that. I tell people that and they're like, "Really? Like you?" I said, "Yeah, my mom had to she searched high and low for books to teach me how to read through her. I mean, she took so much extra time with me at home. And I mean, I do think one day it just clicks for a lot of kids. But and now that I've taught my own daughter to read since she's homeschooled, I kind of know. I kind of know the pressure that comes. It's like it's such a relief once they can read, but every kid will do it, on their own time. Every kid will learn and they'll get there. But yeah, I definitely felt that way when I was younger too. So to come from, that background of struggling with reading in school, I mean, I was lucky enough that my mom was a stay-at-home mom, so she could help me after school. But yeah, I definitely know what you mean by that too.
Yeah. I was definitely in tutoring programs for the help that I needed for reading. And I think everybody well, I don't even know that I would say everybody. I don't know that I have enough knowledge to say that will eventually read, but I just often concern myself with people that aren't supported as young people to
Right.
pursue the help they need for reading. And that's why I feel like literacy programs are so important
Mm-hmm.
to, in some way, support, contribute to, help with whatever the case may be.
Absolutely.
How do you, with your littlest, empower reading and share the joy of words with her?
Yeah, obviously we're big fans of picture books.
How
So
old is she?
she just turned 3 in February.
That's right.
So I'm not quite like, sitting down doing any homeschool like officially with her, but she does ever since she was like 1, she would pick up Charlotte's books and pretend she was reading. So I'm like, okay, maybe this is going to be my bookworm, I'm like, maybe this will be the one. Maybe she'll like reading just a little bit more. But yeah, I mean, picture books, absolutely. I mean, just like that's why I think the illustrations were so important for my book. Because when they are that little, that's what they can look at. They can still tell a picture in their minds with the just by looking at the illustrations, even if they can't read. So that's kind of where she's at. She does memorize some things in her favorite books, and she'll turn the pictures and everything. But that was one of my big things. I had in my mind what I wanted my book to look like, so that kids who maybe can't read, maybe they can't read the words, but they'll still see the pictures. And on the back, I actually wrote the description on the back of my book. I said vivid illustrations, and that's exactly what I wanted the book to have, specifically for, those who can't quite read the words or understand all the words yet, so they can still follow along with the story. So that's kind of where she's at right now.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. The illustrations are so important for young kids too. So I love that, your book has such bright, beautiful artwork in it.
Yeah.
I know my son gravitated and still does gravitate towards books with pictures. We're only recently getting into chapter books that might only have like a couple pictures
A
throughout
couple,
it.
yeah. I'm reading The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe to Charlotte out
Oh,
loud. Yes, so classic book, and it does have a few pictures, but she keeps asking me, okay, where's a picture? And I'm like, well, it doesn't have one. There's not a picture on every page. They're like nice little sketches, but
mhm.
she is kind of still looking for pictures sometimes. But she's getting to the point where like she's really into the story. And some people and some kids, they don't really like to be read to. I know my best friend, she's like, don't read out loud to me. I can't, like, just hand me the paper, let me read it myself. Like she just has never liked to be read out loud to. And I'm like, okay, but like I like to read out loud to people. I like to read in class, when you'd get called on to read. I was like, because it didn't bother me. I liked reading. So I was like, I'll read the whole paragraph, sure. But some people do not like listening out loud to stories. But I'm lucky that Charlotte seems to be picking up the story too. She's actually listening. She's not just hearing words come out of my mouth. So that's a good sign, I think.
Yeah, I'm sure as a homeschooling mom, which side note is amazing, by the way.
Oh,
I think
thank
you and
you.
I have talked about that. That's a whole nother level of pressure to teach your kids to read at the level that is similar or excels what is happening in the
Yes,
institutionalized school.
it is. It is.
Um, but anyways, now I lost my train of thought. I think I was just gonna comment on how, chapter books are a whole other level for kids, a whole nother
Mhm.
thing for them to embrace and enjoy, and to really be able to have them sit down, open a book on their own and explore that is just so magical. I remember a friend of mine talking about her daughter was I don't know, maybe a little older than my son is right now. Maybe she was like 10 or something.
Mhm.
And she really struggled to read. And they came to find out that it wasn't that she wasn't understanding the words or the ability to actually is that she had like some type of rare like eye deficiency or something,
Oh,
where
wow.
like she had to like they find like the eye doctor eventually found it. She had like glasses even before they found it, but there was something
Mhm.
that wasn't being addressed. And as soon as it was, like she could see in such an
Wow.
improved way that all of a sudden she became like this amazing reader.
That's amazing. Oh
And
my
it's like
gosh, how
some
fascinating.
I know. Well, it's like sometimes you don't know what is actually hindering people's ability to enjoy books.
Right, right. Yeah, great point. Great point.
Um, and I think that that's true about older people too,
Mhm.
or any other person that struggles with like a vision impairment.
Mhm.
That if you're not able to see the words well, or if they're blurred, or if it's giving you a headache because you're straining your eyes to see,
Right. Then you're
well, of
not gonna enjoy
course,
it. Mhm.
yeah, of
Yeah.
course not. My grandmother, she had macular degeneration, and she had it pretty advanced by the time she passed away, and she was an avid reader her whole life. It was like one of the worst things that could have happened to her,
Oh gosh.
that she couldn't read well anymore. She had other challenges as well with her health, but she ultimately enjoyed audiobooks at a certain point. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts on audiobooks?
So, I don't really listen to audiobooks, to be honest. I think it's just because the only time I would ever get to would be in the car, and 95% of my car trips are with children. So,
Yeah,
I really wouldn't be able to pay attention. I got a great book light, so that's how I get most of my reading done. It's dimmable, so even if I have kids sleeping near me or anything, I can stay awake and read. So it is kind of a sacrifice whether I want to get more sleep or get more reading done. So it's a toss up. The sleep has been winning lately, but the last couple months reading was. So it's a balance trying to find time
yeah.
to read with kids.
Oh my gosh, I hear that so loud. I get it. What about the kids? Do they listen to audiobooks?
We have a couple. I actually I downloaded some on my Google Books. And even if it was just like The Cat in the Hat, but it's somebody really fun reading it, right? So it makes it that much better. So we have a few Dr. Seuss books. The book there's a book Dragons Love Tacos, and the author's actually reading it, and he's really funny. So yeah, they do. That's actually one of the techniques I used to try to get Charlotte to sleep. In the last several years, that was one of our last things that I tried, and it actually seemed to work. So, it would be like 11 o'clock at night, and my husband would get the little text message, "Oh, your wife just spent $5.99 on a pack of Dr. Seuss books." Like the second I buy them, I'm like, of course he knows. So but I'm like, hey, it's getting her to sleep, I mean, whatever it takes. We read how many to her, but then she doesn't have to look at the picture. She can lay down, she can have it next to her and just listen. So I think that made a bit of a difference in getting her to sleep.
Yeah. Well, that's cool that that was something that helped. Um, you mentioned your friend and your husband and people in your life that are with you or in it every day. Do you
Mhm.
feel like that support has been critical for you to accomplish this project?
Yeah, like I said earlier, when I mean, I didn't even know 58 people liked me that much. You know what I mean? It's like for 58 people to share, and some of the people, I mean, they might have been people from high school and they might not even have kids, but for them to take the time to hit the share button and just, spread the word on my book, I was like, wow, this is really cool. And, just having my husband share it with his network of people, I mean, all his work people saw it. I think he shared it. He knows people from work on the East Coast, and he's like, yeah, I'll share it in there. So I'm like, just by him doing that, but even it just like I was fascinated the strangers that shared it. I mean, not strangers, but strange like Facebook friends, which takes on a
Right.
whole other meaning. So yeah, I mean, the people that shared it from there were just, I was shocked. I felt so loved and encouraged. So I think that was really important to the whole process.
Oh, I love to hear that. I love to hear you say that you just felt, so loved and encouraged by that, because it is important for us to feel like our projects are meaningful, like
Hmm.
they matter and they resonate. And to have that affirmation of that 50 some people, and to us that, feels like maybe it feels small, maybe it feels big, but I mean, at the end of the day, I remind myself of this often, based on the things that I do. Like even an audience of one is still an
Hmm.
audience, right? And
Right.
even that one person that may listen or read something or whatever the case may be can have a ripple effect, and they might tell one other person, or they might change their way of thinking or share the book with somebody else, right? Because of
Absolutely.
just the way that they've enjoyed it. And I always just try to remind myself of that. But I don't know, Catherine, I feel like your book is bound for greatness. I really
Oh, thank
do.
you. Thank
Um,
you.
in part because like it's personal, I mean, it
Hmm.
isn't just something that you sat down and said, oh, I'm gonna, write a children's book, and we'll see where this takes us. And I mean,
Right.
it was manifested from your own experiences with your daughter. I mean, how much more heartfelt and real can you get? So,
Right. Yeah, not much. Like I said when I wrote the back cover, it says something about how basically how parents and children will enjoy it. And when I told you I tried to pitch it for about a year, um, to get a literary agent or to publish the traditional way, what before, I had the money to saved to do this. And that was one of my main things. I wanted them to know this is a book that parents are going to enjoy reading to their kids too, because they're going to nod and laugh along and say, yeah, this was me. Or if it wasn't you, somebody whose kid won't sleep, right? So the parents will nod along and the kids will just be interested in the cute little shark that won't go to sleep or who wants one more story, or so it was really built around also like being a family time at bedtime for the kids and the parents, because not every kids book is as enjoyable for us. They want to read the same one over and over again. And I have to say, when I was shipped my initial copy for 2 weeks straight, that's all Charlotte wanted to read. So I've memorized it, as I probably should, but yeah, I mean, they pick out their favorite books, and they're not all as enjoyable, as
right.
maybe your favorite one is. But yeah, I was excited to have a book for everybody. It really is for parents and kids.
Yeah, that's just so beautiful to hear. And I can certainly relate to the books that don't or aren't enjoyable for you. I mean, I have a boy, so he has at least
Yeah.
like four like farting books
Oh my
of some
gosh.
kind, and I'm like, really, this one? Like again,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah.
Um, so I definitely get that, but I think that rings true also, like taking your kids to a movie theater. to watch something that like you would never go see yourself,
Yeah.
but to like
Yeah.
be pleasantly surprised that maybe there's pun in there for adults too, or
Exactly.
a throwback comedy from the era of your own childhood, that
Yes.
really makes it enjoyable on some
Yeah, and
level.
funny you say that too, because when I was, writing, you have to submit a formal query, they're called, and I was writing, I said, it's like taking your kid, it's like seeing a movie and hearing a joke that's specifically for adults, I mean, like, that's exactly what I likened it to, that there's going to be things, I mean, the kids are looking at it from a whole different perspective than the adults. The kid just sees this little shark having fun, doesn't want to go to sleep, relates to that, and the parents just are I mean, you got to laugh, right? Otherwise we would
Mhm.
probably cry most nights when our kids won't go to sleep. But yeah, it's exactly like that. Just finding that little inside joke or something. The whole thing is kind of like that.
Yeah, that's great. I can't wait to read it. Um, I want to know too how you dealt with the constant rejection of the publishing companies. I mean, many of us would have just been like, forget it. I'm not an author. I don't know why I tried to do this. What was I even
Yeah.
thinking? Like I could see like myself getting in that,
Yep.
negative mindset, negative space. How did you push past that?
Yeah, that's a great point. I think it's so important to address failure like in anything really. I always remember, it comes back to my mom. I remember a story. She had a book of short stories, and they were all true stories. It was kind of like a chicken soup for the soul kind of book, but not quite that one. And it told the story of this author, and he got rejected so many times. It was probably 30 different times. And so this is like a 2-page story you're reading, right? And you just feel so bad for this guy. He's been rejected 30 times, and at the end of the story, they say, "Oh, and by the way, his name's Theodore Geisel, and you know him as Dr. Seuss." So Dr.
Oh,
Seuss was rejected over 30 times by 30 different publishers, but he kept going. And I kind of always look at it that way. Like, I mean, if think of a world without Dr. Seuss, like, I mean, I can't. I happen to love Dr. Seuss, and the world would be so much different without him. So it kind of comes back to that in my mind. It's like, this is great, but and it comes also down to the other options I had. So I could go on to publish this myself. Maybe I go on without a literary agent right now, or without a traditional contract, see how I do. I can still fulfill my goals. I just have to do it a different way. And it doesn't mean I can't go back to that way later either. So that's kind of that. But that story, I mean, I must have read that when I was maybe in 6th grade, but it's resonated with me like my whole life.
mhm. My favorite Dr. Seuss quote, and I feel like it pertains a little bit to our conversation today. Unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to change or get better. It's not. I had
Yeah.
that on the wall in my son's room. My son's nursery was Dr. Seuss.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, and I had that on the wall, and amongst other things. And that's just
Mhm.
something that's always been so close to my heart. That quote. What is one of your favorite Dr. Seuss quotes?
Well, it's ironic because that is my favorite Dr. Seuss quote.
Ah,
I cannot read the end of that book without crying. Charlotte makes fun of
right.
me. So, yeah, I mean that's my favorite Dr. Seuss book. So, and I'm not a tattoo person myself. I like to admire other people's, but I don't have any. But I always said if I got a tattoo, it would be the word unless.
Oh
Like how it is
yeah.
at the end. I mean, that quote is so strong, for so many different reasons. Um, and there's another book. It's not a really popular one of his, but it's called I Had Trouble in Getting to Salisaloo. And
Okay.
basically, the main character wants to go to a place, to Salisaloo, where nobody ever has trouble. Everything's perfect, and because he's having such a bad time. But he figures out that you're gonna have trouble no matter where you go, and just by going to this place, you're still gonna have trouble of some sort. So you might as well just live your life and try to do your best. Like, so that's another one of my favorite ones, I think.
Yeah, that's great too. It's like that, time old thing that, we say over and over again of somebody somewhere is going to judge you no matter what you do. So just live
Yes.
your life.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much.
Tell me about how you, now that the book's going to be out and people are going to be actually able to get it off a shelf or, have it delivered to their door pretty quickly. How are we going to see you out promoting it? What are you going to be doing to share it and try to broaden your outreach?
Yeah, great question. So the my publishing company goes through a third party company to actually print the books. And that company gets you into several online retailers. But as for the whole marketing aspect and getting actually like physically onto a shelf in a store, that does fall back onto me. So that's been what I'm kind of navigating right now, is to get the book. I want to be able to walk into the Target by me and say, "Oh, there's my book." Like it's right
Yeah.
here on the shelf, or walk into the Barnes and Noble closest to me and be able to see it. So that's kind of what I'm going through. In a couple weeks, I'm actually going to the local Barnes and Noble, and the last time I was there, they had a whole section that said local authors. So I'm like, that's really cool, because I mean, maybe I can't get into every single Barnes and Noble store across the nation, but the one that's, right by me, maybe I can walk into there and at least see my book, which is a start. So yeah, it's basically just like kind of talking with people who are in charge. I've worked like within Target for almost 15 years, so I'm hoping that, kind of like with the Barnes and Noble thing, maybe I could get into some Targets around here. Maybe I won't be in, the Targets in California, but like I'll take what I can get. I think it's pretty cool to walk in and see it there. So that's what I'm kind of doing now. I would like to set up like events. I've had so many people say, "Will you sign my copy when it comes in?" And I'm like, "Sure." Like, I guess so. Like if you really want me to, though I think about it, I'm like, I would be asking them to. Like if I knew somebody,
Yeah.
I'd say the same thing. I'm like, I get it. I would be asking you to. So
But
that's
you're
kind of where I'm at.
but you're so humble with it all that you can't see why somebody would want your signature on your book.
Yeah, not yet, but I mean, everybody has to start somewhere, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. And you know what, Catherine, my wish for you is that you would dream bigger, because you should absolutely be in that Target in California. There's no reason you
Yeah,
shouldn't be. Um, yeah, I fully foresee that for you.
thank
Um,
you.
Tell me what you feel like you're thinking about for the future as far as any other projects that you might have on the horizon, or are we
Yeah.
focusing on this one?
So there was a reason why it's not just called Charlotte the Shark. This one is Charlotte the Shark Won't Go to Sleep. So when I imagined it, I did imagine it being a series. So maybe like Charlotte the Shark goes to the dentist. I mean, how cute would it be to see a shark going to the dentist? And, they're scared. And maybe the dentist is this tiny little starfish, or something. And this little shark is just so scared to go to the dentist. But mainly it's my children's series, at least I see it dealing with common problems. I mean, getting your child to sleep is a common problem. Kids being scared of the dentist is a common problem. um, Not picking up their toys, a new baby. I mean, Charlotte herself, my daughter, has gone through all of that. So why not, have Charlotte the Shark experience the same things and help other kids to do it as well.
Yeah, that's exciting. I can't wait for that. And I fully expect there should be some type of Alice series at some point.
That's what I've heard too. I'm like, oh gosh, I said, Charlotte has told me that. My mother-in-law said that, and both my sisters-in-law, and I'm like, Yeah, I gotta start thinking of that too, I guess. I'm like,
Alice is going to tell you as soon as she realizes and she's old
yeah,
enough
I
to
know, I
realize.
know. She keeps walking around with the book. She says, "I love our book." That's what they both say. But Alice
Yeah.
has gotten, she heard us say it, so she's like, "I love our book," and I'm like, "Yeah, it's about your sister, but maybe you'll get your own someday too."
Goals, right?
Yeah.
It's all part of the plan. Um, Catherine, I've just loved this conversation. I love talking about books and, yours specifically just is so heartwarming and I just can't wait to receive it. And I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait for it to land on my doorstep next week.
Yeah, it
Um,
comes out and it's supposed to be released next week. It might even, if you ordered through Barnes and Noble, I guess it's going to be a little sooner, but that's a nice surprise.
yeah,
Mm.
absolutely. Is there anything that you want to leave our listeners thinking about or any thoughts that you want to leave with us today before we close?
I think back to the Dr. Seuss thing that just you should keep trying. If you don't achieve your goals in one way, like I didn't get, published traditionally at first, but there's more than one way to navigate your goals. So just keep trying.
I love that so much. And I have to know, you have to tell me what you're reading right now.
Oh, yes, I would love to because it was a book recommended by one of my best friends. It's The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle. So the title's kind of a mouthful, but if you go look up the synopsis, it sounds amazing. I can't wait to read it.
Oh, awesome. I'll have to check that out and put that on my
Yeah,
ever-growing list of things I'm
yeah,
planning to
please do.
read. Tell us where we can find you and how we can keep up to date with Charlotte the Shark and where we can purchase your book.
Yeah, so my Facebook page is just Catherine Talley. My Instagram page is TallyCat02. So if you search that, I should pop up the correct version of that. Um, I actually have a cousin who's a graphic designer. I said, "You're going to have to help me design my own, webpage." Back to me not being able to draw stick people. I can't, I'm not the best, at the technology thing either, but so hopefully in the future, maybe I could have my website up and running. But as for buying it, it's very cool, I gotta say, to be able to put the title in on Amazon and have it pop right up. That's been cool. I mean, no matter how anyone feels about Amazon, it's really cool to see my title on there. Amazon and Barnes and Noble and even like the Books a Million, it's on there. It's something like thousands of different retailers. So I've been having a little bit of fun playing around, going to different book websites and putting it in, and it'll randomly pop up sometimes. So I'm like, oh, it's sold here too. So those are probably the most common retailers, but yeah, it's in a lot of different places. So hopefully that puts it in a lot of people's hands.
I'm sure it will. And again, I'm just so excited for you. I'm so excited for this accomplishment and just to see what's forthcoming. And thank you again for spending some time with me here today.
Thank you. I'm honored and thank you for all your support.